Why does your grocery bill feel heavier while your paycheck hasn't changed? In 2025, import tariffs on goods from China and Europe are quietly draining American wallets. What was supposed to protect US industries is now creeping into every aisle of the supermarket, every electronics shelf, and every hardware store. The prices of everyday essentials, from chicken and fresh produce to laptops and kitchen appliances, are climbing, not because of shortages, but because tariffs are adding hidden costs to everything we buy. The question is, who's really being protected when working families are the ones paying the price? In 2025, the impact of tariffs on American consumers is no longer just an abstract economic debate. It's visible in every receipt. The US government has maintained and in some cases expanded tariffs on imports from China, covering a wide range of products from electronics to household goods. Additional duties have also been placed on certain European imports, including specialty foods, wine, and manufactured goods. These tariffs, ranging between 15% and 40%, were designed to protect American jobs and manufacturing. But the immediate effect has been higher prices at checkout counters across the country. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the price index for imported consumer goods rose nearly 6% in the second quarter of 2025 compared to the same period last year. Electronics, televisions, laptops, smartphones are seeing price increases of $30 to $40 per unit, as retailers like Walmart and Best Buy pass on the added cost of tariffs. Grocery chains are reporting higher prices on imported staples, from olive oil and cheese to packaged snacks and frozen seafood. Even mid-range home appliances like washing machines and microwaves are now hundreds of dollars more expensive than they were just a year ago. This ripple effect is not confined to luxury goods. Dollar stores, discount retailers, and wholesale clubs, which rely heavily on cheap imported items, are quietly adjusting their pricing to cope with increased import costs. For small businesses, the squeeze is worse. A hardware shop in Texas reports that the wholesale price of basic tools, screwdrivers, hammers, drills, has jumped by nearly 20% since early this year. Many of these businesses have no choice but to either raise prices or absorb losses. The mood among consumers is tense. Social media is filled with posts from frustrated families who can no longer stretch their budgets as they once did. For them, the debate about trade policy feels irrelevant compared to the reality of rising costs. As one viral comment on Reddit put it, "I don't care if this is about protecting American steel, I just want to afford my groceries." The logic behind tariffs sounds simple: make imported goods more expensive, and domestic producers will gain an edge. For decades, this policy tool has been used to protect American industries seen as vulnerable to cheap foreign competition. In 2025, the focus has largely been on reducing dependence on China, a country that dominates global supply chains for electronics, machinery, and many raw materials. By imposing tariffs of 15% to 40% on Chinese goods, Washington hopes to encourage US tech companies to either bring manufacturing home or shift production to countries deemed friendlier, such as Mexico or Vietnam. However, this theory has collided with the reality of a hyper-connected global economy. US companies have spent years building supply chains optimized for cost and efficiency, often centered in Asia. These supply chains can't be easily or quickly replaced. A sudden tariff doesn't automatically lead to domestic production. Instead, it creates price shocks. When a laptop or refrigerator costs more to import, that higher cost cascades down from distributor to retailer until it shows up on the consumer's receipt. China's retaliation has only added to the strain. By raising duties on key American exports, from soybeans and pork to industrial equipment, Beijing has hit US farmers and manufacturers, forcing them to look for new markets or lower their prices. The European Union has responded in smaller ways, but combined with China's actions, the result has been a squeeze on both sides of the trade equation. Economic researchers have been clear about the unintended effects. A study from the Peterson Institute for International Economics found that nearly 100% of the tariff costs imposed since 2018 have been passed on to American consumers. The Federal Reserve's latest analysis calls tariffs an inflationary tax by another name, warning that they can push prices higher even when supply chains are stable. The political narrative adds another layer of complexity. Tariffs are often sold to the public as a form of economic patriotism, a way to bring back US manufacturing jobs. But as of mid-2025, there is little evidence of major factories returning en masse. Most companies are either paying the tariffs and raising prices, or quietly shifting production to other low-cost regions, which still means higher costs due to logistics and restructuring. The promise of stronger domestic industries has yet to materialize, while the immediate cost burden has landed squarely on American households. The fallout from tariffs touches nearly every layer of American life, but the weight is heaviest on those least able to absorb it. For the average middle-class family, the impact shows up subtly. A slightly higher grocery bill here, a pricier washing machine there, but over time these small increases add up to hundreds of dollars a month. A recent report by Moody's Analytics estimated that tariffs imposed since 2024 have added nearly $1,200 annually to the expenses of a typical US household. For families living paycheck to paycheck, that's equivalent to losing a full month's worth of groceries or a utility bill that suddenly can't be paid on time. Small businesses, especially those dependent on imported goods or parts, are also feeling the squeeze. A family-owned kitchenware shop in Oregon reported having to raise the price of basic pots and pans by 15% just to stay afloat. Restaurants that rely on imported ingredients, like Italian olive oil or specialty cheeses from France, are cutting menu items or passing costs to customers. In states like California and New York, where dining and retail already operate on razor-thin margins, even minor price hikes can mean the difference between profit and closure. Certain industries are particularly vulnerable. Electronics retailers are being hit by a perfect storm of rising import costs and reduced consumer demand. When a new smartphone or laptop is suddenly $40 more expensive due to tariffs, many consumers delay upgrades, leading to sluggish sales. Meanwhile, auto repair shops are struggling as tariffs raise the cost of imported car parts, especially for European or Asian models. In Texas and Florida, several mechanics report that customers are postponing non-essential repairs because of inflated prices. Regionally, the pain is uneven. Coastal states that rely heavily on ports and global trade, like California and Florida, are seeing a sharper rise in retail prices. Cities with a large concentration of immigrants, who often run small import-driven businesses, are also grappling with thinner margins. Meanwhile, rural states that depend on exports, like Iowa or Nebraska, where farming communities rely on selling crops to China, are being hit from the opposite side: reduced demand for American goods abroad. For low-income families, the picture is bleakest. Food banks across the Midwest have reported rising demand, partly because the cost of staples like rice, cooking oil, and frozen vegetables has jumped in local stores. These families are not just paying more for imports, they're also facing inflation that tariffs indirectly fuel across the entire economy. A single mom in Ohio summed it up bluntly: "I don't have the luxury of caring about trade wars. I just see that my money buys less every week." Behind every statistic about tariffs, there's a personal story of frustration, sacrifice, or quiet anger. For many Americans, these trade policies feel like a distant political chess game. But the consequences are painfully real at the checkout counter. Take Sarah Collins, a single mother from Columbus, Ohio. Her weekly grocery bill has gone up by nearly $20 over the past year, even though she hasn't changed her shopping habits. "I used to buy olive oil and imported pasta for special meals with my kids," she says, "but now I stick to whatever's cheapest. It feels like we're being punished for something we didn't cause." Small business owners echo this sentiment. Jackie Nguyen, who runs a small electronics store in Portland, Oregon, says tariffs have become an invisible enemy. "Every shipment from Asia now costs me 20% more. I can't just eat that cost. I'd go bankrupt. So I raise prices, and customers get angry. They think I'm gouging them, but I'm just trying to survive." The frustration is also palpable among farmers. In Iowa, soybean growers are feeling the sting of retaliatory tariffs from China, which has slowed purchases of US crops. David Whitmore, a third-generation farmer, puts it bluntly: "We're stuck in the middle of a fight we didn't start. Washington says it's protecting us, but right now I don't feel protected. I feel squeezed." Even urban workers, far from the farmland or ports, are speaking out. In Chicago, a warehouse supervisor named Tony Vasquez notes how the price of replacement parts for forklifts and equipment, many sourced from Europe, has jumped dramatically. It's not just groceries or electronics. It's everything. It's the screws, the tires, the little things nobody thinks about. And when our costs go up, the delivery fees and everything else follow. Social media platforms are filled with similar complaints. On Reddit and TikTok, users share side-by-side photos of price tags from last year and now, showing everyday products, from kitchen appliances to kids' sneakers, that have jumped by $10 or $20. The collective tone is one of exhaustion. As one viral comment put it, "I get that tariffs are supposed to hurt China, but all I feel is that they're hurting us." Tariffs were meant to be a shield for the American economy, a way to protect domestic jobs and industries from foreign competition. But in 2025, that shield is starting to look like a tax on ordinary Americans. Every dollar added to a grocery bill, every price hike on electronics or car parts, is a quiet reminder that trade wars rarely have clean winners or losers. Instead, they create ripple effects that stretch far beyond Washington boardrooms and political speeches. The conversation around tariffs is also becoming more polarized. Supporters argue that the long-term gains, a stronger manufacturing base, less reliance on China, will outweigh the short-term pain. But for millions of families who are already juggling high rents, medical bills, and stagnant wages, the notion of long-term benefits feels distant, almost abstract. The cost is immediate, and it is felt with every swipe of a debit card. Meanwhile, businesses of all sizes are quietly rethinking their strategies. Some are shifting production to countries like Vietnam or Mexico, while others are consolidating operations or cutting jobs to stay afloat. In this environment, the consumer becomes both the target and the casualty of economic policy, forced to adapt without a voice in the decision-making process. As summer 2025 unfolds, the bigger question lingers. How much more can American households absorb? At what point does protecting the economy start to feel like a burden on the very people it's supposed to help? There's no simple answer, and that uncertainty may be the most telling sign of all. That's all for today's episode of Tariff Trouble, how import taxes are quietly draining American wallets. We've heard how these policies, meant to protect American industries, are hitting everyday consumers, small businesses, and even farmers in ways few expected. The price hikes at the checkout line aren't just numbers. They're stories of families adjusting, business owners struggling, and workers questioning if the trade-off is worth it. If this conversation resonated with you, share your thoughts. Have you noticed the impact of tariffs on your own budget? We'd love to hear your experience. Don't forget to follow this podcast for more deep dives into the real issues shaping life in America. Thanks for listening, and take care until next time.